Welcome everyone to Rules Explained. In this episode, we're going over Part 3 of Flames of War. I'm John Merritt.
And I'm Rob Nothing.
Sorry for the long delay in videos. We've been hard at work at putting out Rules Explained version 2. We're going to be adding a lot to the show, so stay tuned. And in this episode, we're going to be going over the assault. Rob, what can you tell us about assaults?
Well, in essence, the assault phase is probably one of the more interesting phases of the game. See, many miniatures games, especially the ones that we've dealt with before in Rules Explained, such as Warhammer 40K and so on and so forth, the idea of the assault is almost ingrained into the personality of the game, ingrained into the DNA, if you wish, of the game, and you're expected to engage in a close assault at some time. Well, I think Flames of War tries to go ahead and suggest that, yeah, close assaults did actually happen, obviously, in World War II. In modern combat, they always occur. But it really makes this a bloody affair to go ahead and suggest that this is going to go ahead and probably be the last action your units, your formations take to try to win this particular battle. And try to go ahead and force, for lack of a better phrase, the player to go ahead and engage in maneuver and engage in long-range fire and tactical decisions rather than rely on the assault. So that's my take on it. That's what I believe that they were trying to do with it, and I believe they succeeded.
That they did. Yeah, the assault phase is deadly because it goes back and forth. It's not like I attacked and you attack, and then we move on. It's I'm attacking, you're attacking. Then we check to see if combat breaks. Is there a counterattack or is there a break-off? And it can go back and forth for quite a few times, or a few rounds.
That is correct. And just to get into close combat involves quite a bit of firing of your weaponry and so on and so forth. So we've played this a couple of times, and I don't think we've even tried to go into close assault. We've usually just tried to, at least I have purposely tried to stay out of that situation because I don't see it as a viable option unless you're going up against an enemy that's already broken, pinned, or perhaps weakened through other means like bombardment or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I almost feel like I'm talking about World War I tactics here.
Okay, so for assault, there are 7 different phases to it. There's charging the opponent's defensive fire, and this is like you get an all-out attack. It isn't just like, you hit on a 6. I mean, it's an all-out attack.
Yeah.
You have to roll to hit, roll to save, check if the assault is over, test to counterattack, and then you either counterattack or break off. So,
right.
So you did mention getting into the assault phase. So the first thing is charging into contact. What does that mean?
Well, you have to go ahead and be within 4 inches to go ahead and make this work. Okay. You can't go ahead and just willy-nilly say, hey, I'm 12 inches away, I'm going to go ahead and charge you into combat. No, that's not going to work. But what's very interesting about that is before you even charge, you are allowed a moving shoot. If you remember from our earlier episodes, there's 2 different fire rates, moving and non-moving, but you can shoot before you go into close combat. So again, this is going to be a very deadly affair. You got your firing, and then you're going to assault, and then there's going to be defensive fire. But needless to say, yes, you got to go ahead and be very close to your opponent before you can even consider running into close combat.
Oh, yeah.
Assault combat.
So there's also assaulting in terrain. There's assaulting across obstacles. So these are all things that you need to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
But there's also a checklist about who can assault. So it's not just the distance that is the issue. It's also there are several qualifications. You can't be pinned down. You can't be a heavy weapons unit. And there's other ones in here that the reader of the game can go ahead and follow along with on page 52 of the rule book. There's a wide variety of other qualifications that go ahead and make it impossible for a unit to go ahead and engage in assaults. You can't spot, for example, for artillery. You can't go ahead and move faster than your 10 inches of tactical speed. You can't be firing at aircraft. So the game plays very good with the economy of action because it does go ahead and take into account that this is a finite amount of time in these turns. You can't do everything at once. You can't shoot at the airplanes. You can't go ahead and charge across the battlefield, and you can't go ahead and be spotting for artillery and at the same time assaulting your enemy forces. So there's a checklist here that tells you what you can and cannot have as far as a qualifier, or I should say a disqualifier for you in an assault.
Right, so you really have to pay attention and use strategy and tactics for your infantry. Because, if they're moving or they're dashing, or if, they are shooting, then they can't charge. It's who can assault.
Yes.
So then we charge into combat. So, like I said, you have to be within 4 inches, and then you're able to charge.
And then you actually have to get into contact, which is a little different than other games in which you can be within 1 inch or a half inch or whatever like that.
Right.
You actually have to move into contact. Yes. Unless, as you can see by the illustration, or if the reader is going to go ahead and follow along in their own book, there's an illustration that suggests that if there's like a wall, a low-lying wall, not like a brick wall from a building or whatever.
Right.
A low-lying wall, if you can go ahead and contact the wall that the enemy unit is contacting, that counts as being in the contact.
So assaulting in terrain. Don't know if there's anything special about that. So who can defensive fire?
Well, the only thing about really quickly about assaulting across terrain is if you miss your cross check, that we mentioned that earlier too. If you fail your cross check, you cannot move into contact. You actually have to move your tank back, or move your vehicle, or whatever, 2 inches back, which puts you in a pretty exposed position as your tank is trying to go ahead and cross over a barrier or whatever, and it just stops. And it's like, oh, please don't shoot at me.
Yeah. So who can defensive fire?
Just about anybody. I mean, if you're within 8 inches of the assaulting team, you can go ahead and unload on the incoming units. And this is where it gets deadly. I mean, if you were not able to, if you were not able to whittle down your opponent with either your own offensive fire or with, like I said, some artillery or something, you're going to get pretty mowed down here. I mean, there's going to be a lot of fire coming at you. Defending teams shoot at their halted rate of fire unless they're pinned. So again, another reason why you should be shooting at them beforehand to maybe prevent them from being able to get so much firepower bearing down on you. And again, look at the other rule there: no mistaken targets. So you can go ahead and lose your best units out of this. You can't defer the damage. And defensive fire hits side armor, no bulletproof cover. I mean, this is serious crap here.
Oh yeah.
You are at your weakest point as an attacker, which is kind of strange to say, but yes, you're at your weakest point if you're the attacker. And if anybody wants to doubt this, I would go ahead and point them at Saving Private Ryan, the first opening sequence there, which many veterans have suggested is a very realistic account of what happened on the beach of Omaha during that attack.
I read stories where people were walking out because it was giving them flashbacks.
Yeah. So, I mean, the moving into assault phase is going to go ahead and be very deadly for the assaulters. You better have overwhelming numbers before you go and do this.
Yeah, because you will lose people.
Yes.
So, forcing the assault to fall back.
Yes, if you go ahead and hit the other unit too much, the whole pinning down rule that we have talked about before, they will stop in their tracks, and they will go ahead and be moved back to their 2 inches away. And again, putting them right there in the open. It's a very interesting rule. I don't know if I agree with this. I think if your unit is forced to fall back because of a failed assault, I think you should be allowed to move them back to their starting positions. It kind of makes sense to me. You could go ahead and make them pin down, which I think they do actually. I'm sorry, they do become pinned down. But needless to say, I just don't like the idea of, and it doesn't seem to make any sense to me if your unit's charging and then they take so many casualties and then you just stop. They just stop right there in the middle of this fire. I mean, it seems a bit off. Yeah. And I don't know, somebody should go ahead and comment on whether they think this is realistic. I don't know if I like it or not.
This next one just cracks me up, just the title of it, Sneaking Up on Tanks.
Yep, be very quiet.
Yeah, it's exactly what I was thinking of too. So who can sneak up on tanks?
Just infantry, as far as if it's infantry and they haven't moved and they're in a concealed position, they can sneak up on the tank, and the tank does not get defensive fire. So this is where it gets interesting.
Does not get defensive fire.
Yeah, and to quote another movie, to throw another movie reference in their fury, you know,
Great movie.
they were going, they were moving right there along the road, and some infantry came up with their Panzerfaust and just took out a Sherman tank, and they didn't know what the heck hit them.
Yep.
So yeah, so if your infantry can be dangerous in the situation, which is why you should send your infantry out in front of the tanks. Just kidding, infantry. Don't write me any nasty letters here.
So you've made your charge. You've taken an assault from the defenders, from them shooting, rolling to hit.
Okay, this assumes that you've made it through all that, and now
Right.
you're actually in contact with the enemy. So now you go ahead and take a look at your skill rating. So now it's based upon your skill rating. It's
Right.
not based upon we talked about this during the fire. We talked about the firing phase in an earlier video. This is now based on the assaulting unit's skill rating
Mm-hmm.
and determine whether or not they actually hit their opponent. And of course, then you get your saves, and then you see what's left.
So you roll to hit, they roll to save, and yep, you see who's left.
Yep.
And then you test to check if the assault is over.
Yes. If all of the defending teams that are 4 inches or more away, and there's no intact vehicles, or in other words, they're not bailed out or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If you have cleared it of any unit that is capable of firing back at you, or shooting back at you, or fighting back, you have won, and the defending units must now break off. But if you have not managed to go ahead and take care of everybody, then the other side can go ahead and try a counterattack.
So then you test to counterattack.
Yep.
And you do that by rolling against the
You have a
motivation rating. Yeah.
Yep. And then there might be a special rule, like, scared or something that modifies the counterattack rating. But if you go ahead and succeed, you have two choices. You can go ahead and counterattack or break off,
Mm-hmm.
as you choose. Otherwise, you break off.
Yep. And then it ends, or then does the other person charge up again?
If you break off, the other player can go ahead and consolidate his units. But let's go ahead and go with step 7 here, because let's say you succeed. So now you counterattack. So now you get to roll your dice for your skill rating. And the other player has to save, and the procedure, starts all over again.
Sorry, and you do a whole round again, yeah, and you will lose people, they will lose people, yeah. Assault in this game, it is really deadly. I mean, you better have overwhelming forces when charging.
Yes. And if you break off, so now we go back to the break off phase.
Okay, so here's break off.
If you can't move more than 6 inches away, your guys will surrender. They will just disappear into the woods, whatever the case may be. So you effectively lose those units that can't break off more than 6 inches away.
Uh-huh.
And then now whoever's left in the victorious units, because that's it. It's all or nothing. You either win and you're in possession of the field, or you're running away and hoping that your units have not disintegrated. So if you have survived, if you're the victor, you can go ahead and move 4 inches in any direction, but you can't charge at contact, and you cannot go within 2 inches of the enemy. So you could follow up if you want. You can consolidate your position, whatever you need to do. But it is kind of a free move, if you wish, although restricted in distance.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing I try and keep in mind is when they made this game, that they designed this game to be about an hour to an hour and a half long.
Yeah.
So at some point, you got to speed things up a bit.
Yes, and this is probably the most lengthy portion of the game. Is if you are in close assault, it is going to take some time. But then again, maybe it's not. The viewer and the listener is going to have to go ahead and be patient, because the games we've played, I have actually avoided trying to go into close assault as much as possible, because I look at these rules, I'm like, there's no way I have enough units to survive this. I'm just going to go and pummel you until you fail your unit last stands, your formation last stands. I'm not even going to bother this. I can see the tactical reason why you might have to do it, especially if there's objectives to secure,
Oh, sure.
or if there is a defensive position you need rooted out. I get it, but If there is not that need, I am not going into close combat. I'm not going into assault phase. I'm just going to pummel you and bombard you, and I'm going to shoot at you until, well, we're going to talk about Last Stand in just a few seconds.
So speaking of Last Stand, I mean, this is what got to me. I mean, this is like a quick way to end a game.
Yep.
So Last Stand, most units will stand firm while their losses are light, but once casualties mount, even the most battle-hardened soldiers question the wisdom of staying in the fight, deciding that discretion is a better part of valor. Do we fight or do we run? And these are the rules that determine, do we fight or do we run? So what is good spirits, and what is the unit Last Stand test?
If you're in good spirits, you don't make any checks whatsoever. You're good. You know, and this gives the qualifiers for it. If you have nothing destroyed, you're fine.
We're in good
But if you
spirits.
have, yes, and you have to have a certain number of teams remaining in your formation for you to consider to be in good spirits. So if you have that number, two tank teams, two gun teams, three infantry teams, one aircraft, whatever, you're still in good spirits. Okay. Um, Only kind. This is very important here. This is what I like about this unit Last Stand. You have to be in command to go ahead and when you're checking for good spirits. So you
Yes.
got to still make sure you're staying within the command distance of your units.
Because I think that happened to me. I think you killed my general, and my good spirits went bye-bye really quick.
Yeah, there was no command. I think if you remember, right, your formation was a bit dispersed, and once I
Yes.
kind of took out that center there, you had some serious problems maintaining this, and that's why I like this game because there's some tactical. If you make tactical mistakes, you're going to pay. If you make good tactical decisions, you're going to have victory, no matter what your dice might be. You should be able to go ahead and pull out the victory regardless.
All right.
So
And
anyway,
uh,
when you find out if you're not in good spirits, you must make a unit Last Stand test using your motivation rating.
mhm.
Obviously, that could be modified as well. And if you fail it, the unit is destroyed, not the stand. The entire unit just says, "I'm gone." Now,
We're out of
here's
here.
again, yeah, here's again where I have a little bit of a difficulty. I'm old school Grognard. I want to see units retreating across a battlefield. So why can't we just say they're running? Give them a bonus to their move and have them run. They can't have the ability to shoot. And if they are engaged in hand-to-hand, or I should say, if they're engaged in assault, they lose automatically. But give us a chance to maybe rally them or fall back to a defensible position. I don't know. Something in me is suggesting that should be an option. But again, just like you said a few seconds ago, John, let's make the game fast. Let's make the game quick. If you guys are going to rout, there's probably no chance of saving them and rallying them anyway. So they just leave and you take them off the board.
Done.
Done.
So then we have that's our unit Last Stand. Then we have a formation Last Stand. So these
So
are
if you
for your
remember correctly,
tanks.
yes. Well, your unit is made up of teams,
Uh huh.
and your formation is made up of units.
Correct.
Now, in the games we usually play, we have very small formations, so this normally did not come into play. But if you have larger formations where you have multiple units in your game, your entire army might decide it's done. And you might lose the game at that point because the entire army that you are fielding at that particular time says, we're finished. We can't win this. We're all going to retreat now.
Stick
So
a
it's
fork in
the
us. We're
same
done.
thing. Yes, it's basically the same thing as the unit, but on a grander scale and more dire consequences if you screw up.
Okay. So yeah, I mean that generally is the rules. I mean that takes us to the unit formation. I'm sorry, the unit Last Stand and the formation Last Stand, and that's generally a turn.
Yep. You are
Uh,
done with the turn, and we have explained each phase of the turn. Everything else is basically just flavor text, going ahead and adding those wonderful ideas that make this setting, World War
yeah.
II, so
I mean,
fascinating to people.
armored trains. I think these are cool because I love trains. Trains are cool. Yeah. So in the
Some
back here,
Thomas the Tank Engine.
yeah, Thomas the Tank Engine with an attitude, big bad diesel. But yeah, I mean, this is version 4 of the rules. So they've added, obviously 3 editions before here. They've had rules and they've built upon it. So the core rules that we went over tell you how to play the game. at a very basic level. These are, add-ons. So here's the train.
And then you'll see
it.
sections.
Mhm.
You'll see sections later on for each particular army. Like the British will have their special rules, the
Right.
Americans will have their special rules,
And
which
then if
makes
you have
sense
special
because
equipment. Yeah.
yeah, there was doctrine and equipment, just like you said, that was unique to each army.
And then they have different weapons. I mean, we didn't. I don't know. Did we actually talk about airplanes?
No, I thought that would be. I think we glossed over it, and
I think we
the
did.
essence of the airplane is it functions almost just like artillery bombardment for the
Mhm.
most part. There's obviously some nuances there, but in my opinion, I think if you add airplanes to a particular battle, you're probably talking about much larger formations than
Yeah.
you and I play.
Agreed.
I like the close-up personal type, scenario where there's a couple of squads and a few tanks going and assaulting a village. Once you start getting into airplanes and armored trains, well, armored trains would be fun too, I think. But anyway, yes, planes are basically just flying artillery.
Yeah. And then we have abilities where they have rules in here for cavalry and observers and scouts.
Yeah.
And then here we move into what you were saying. So the certain armies have their special abilities. So here's the U.S. special rules. And we just kind of keep going. And then we have the German special rules. I mean, so each major either Axis or Allies or whichever faction you decide to go with, has its own unique flavor, its own unique strategy. And here's the British special rules, and the Soviet special rules. I mean, I'm kind of moving quick here over these. Here's the fortifications.
Yeah, and if the viewers and listeners want us to go ahead and pick these rules apart, feel free to go ahead and mention it to us. Feel free to put a little message. But we thought we would just go ahead and give a quick overview of the game rules themselves, just to kind of give some insight, to explain. Sorry to go ahead and throw the title of our little endeavor at everybody, but that's what we're trying to do here. We're just trying to go ahead and provide just some ideas for you to go ahead and maybe make the game a little bit more interesting. Maybe you can understand the rationale behind the decisions for the rule and not just the rules themselves.
Oh, I love these. And in the back, they have like the cheat sheets. I love the cheat sheets. Print these out, put them out there. It's got your turn. Here's your starting. It has your movement values. The mobility and movements. Here is the shooting. All of the different phases and steps in it. I love these. These are great. So we have the artillery and the assault. I think that's going to be it for Flames of War for us. Like I said, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the comments. We read all of them. We are going to be putting out some links hopefully soon for Patreon to help keep us independent so that way we don't have advertisements on this. So please, when we do put that link up, please feel free to subscribe. We could really use your support.
And subscribe and like anyway. I mean,
yes.
Seriously. We've noticed that we've had a few hundred people go ahead and start watching a few of these videos, and we're getting excited about this, and we want to expand it. We want to give you guys more of this particular idea of just two guys shooting the crud about a game, not really trying to give you anything else but just that flavor. That's what we're here. We could have been called Rules Flavored.
We could have been. We're also going to be putting in a Discord server for the people who do subscribe, so you guys can come online, join our Discord server, ask questions, chat with us, post things, and just begin to build a small community of people who just love playing old games or new games or anything like that. And I think that's going to do it for us. I'm John Merritt.
I'm Rob Nothing.
Guys, thank you for listening.
Adios.